Hello to everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's Family Office Network's webinar series, The Power of Politics. Joe Jarabek is the president of Jarabek Company and is presenting for us today. Joe is a global governmental and business advisor and has 20 years of experience as a political and business liaison at the state and national level. Joe is a former senior staff member on presidential races, and he has officially represented the U.S. at the foreign diplomatic events, most recently in Europe and the Middle East. National publications, including the Washington Post, have referenced and quoted Joe as an expert opinion. Today, Joe is going to discuss how his company can complement what family offices are doing to further their business and investment opportunities. At the end of today's presentation, we will have time for Q&A. We always encourage your questions. Please use your questions chat option on the right side of your screen to send over any questions you have. With that said, Joe, I'll let you get started.
Great, thank you so much, Lizzie.
You're welcome.
And with that, I'd like to welcome everybody here today and thank you for your time. What we're looking at today is the power of politics in incorporating government policy and strategy into your investment and business plan. As we can see today, Washington has changed. There is one-party rule, which means things are going to move very quick. And we can see since the current president has been elected, there are a lot of issues out there that are flying through that are taking interest amongst those that have an interest with politics. So basically, what are we looking to do today? Incorporating government policy and strategy into your business plan and investment plan, discussing lobbying the ROI, why government policy is vital to your business plan, changes in DC in the direction of federal spending, why invest now, the specific and unique capabilities of Jarabek Company, how are family offices using government policy and strategy in their business plans today, and how to take the next step. Why government policy in your business plan? As illustrated here by the Forbes article, big corporations and big business have got it right. Fortune 100 have taken $2 billion in lobbying spend and turned it into $400 billion in taxpayer cash being used for whatever their interest may be. When looking at this, there are many things that are important. Family offices and funds are starting to really take hold of the growing trend of how to affect business as it relates to policy. Now, this could be taking your portfolio companies and playing offense on an issue that could be very important to them, moving legislation, moving rules, possibly even procurements, stacking the deck in your favor, or it could be playing defense. There are certain items when you look at Washington today and you look at where the environmental movement is going, and whether it be the automotive industry, big oil, those folks are playing a lot of defense. So we're able to structure government and use government in such a way to best allocate and best use your business resources and assets to the best of their ability. We will advocate directly for your unique business interests and help you become a leader and expert advisor to the government, which is also important. What is lobbying? According to the NCSL, it's the practice of promoting or opposing or manner of influencing the introduction or defeat or enactment of legislation before the legislative body. I would also add to that being involved in the rulemaking process, looking at rules that are either beneficial or could hurt your business, and also procurement as well. Growth trends in lobbying spend. So as we can see from this slide right here, the trend has gone up. It did plateau a little bit in 2020, but with the amount of federal dollars that are going to be spent in this coming administration that have already been spent with the upcoming infrastructure plan and other items that are still on the agenda, I venture to guess that that number that you're seeing right now is going to skyrocket over the coming years. So what's that mean? That means there are more people playing to influence government to help predict an outcome. And at the end of the day, that's what we're doing, is providing access to those that are the decision makers to impact an outcome. Here's an example of lobbying spend by industry. One of the things that I would say with this graphic, and the only thing that I would take into consideration, is tech is an enormous spend in politics and in government. For some odd reason, this graph didn't do a good job of capturing that, but I did like it because of everything else that it did capture. And as you can see here too, again, the spend continues to go up, and based off of the industry and the level of impact at which they're looking to have in business. Why should you invest in lobbying now? Well, you're going to want to stay advised and be prepared for upcoming policy changes due to changing government leadership. And I think the one thing that all family offices and funds should be asking themselves, how will the new executive orders and balance of power affect my business and investments? As we can see, the current administration is taking a very active role in terms of executive orders, surpassing the previous administrations by a lot, and we don't see that end coming anytime soon. When you look at where the current focus is in terms of politics in Washington as well, you have a White House that is moving very swiftly in terms of the agenda that they're in favor of, whether that be the environment, whether that be more government control, whether that be ways of helping those that are underserved, and they're taking a direct action to move in that direction. And what we're seeing on the other side of that is the states pushing back on Washington. Now, this is also interesting because this can be incredibly helpful to you. And the best way I would compare it is to the stock market and volatility. When you have one party rule in Washington, things happen, things get done, things move. The only way that states can stop those things are by doing things at the state level. So really, there's the ability to impact government at both ends, both the federal and state level, to help predict that outcome. And you want to think about this too. How can I affect a change that is certain to come? And how can I protect my investments? Here's a sample of some of the executive orders that the president has currently signed and are moving forward with today. And I'm sure we're going to see more. But what specifically we do for you? We have 20 years of experience in government relations and policy, established relationships across state, local, and national levels of government, proprietary national network of representatives and lobbyists at the state level, experience with numerous businesses and industries. And I think with that, I'd like to go into a couple of those and help people understand too how they can impact government. I spoke a little bit about the national level and how fast DC is moving. As we're looking at an infrastructure plan coming in the very near future, the extension of PPP, more executive action, we're seeing more action now than we have seen in a very, very long time. And I think with that, you have to look at your portfolios, whether it's your direct investments or whether it's your family office in general, based off of what is happening in Washington or what is happening in your own state or number of states, or looking at your portfolio of companies. What is happening to directly affect those companies? And what can you do to either help that change or prevent that change or move the ball in a different direction? What we found, and we're seeing the growing trend of, is many family offices and funds being very active in the process. They are now looking at their portfolio of companies and even asking their CEOs, hey, if we had a wish list of 3 items that we could fix that are government rules, regulations, laws, or things related to procurement, would that be helpful to you? And immediately the CEOs come back and say, absolutely, that would be helpful to us. They're looking for every possible advantage they can get in terms of stacking their business against the competition that's out there. And that's a lot of what we do, is it's taking your interests and being able to stack them against the competition to give you a competitive advantage. Government can make or break a business. The government can make or break an industry. And what we typically do is use the levers of government and the access that we have to provide you with a roadmap, a plan, and access to go ahead and do just that. Really, when it comes to government, anything is possible. And I think what we're seeing are more and more family offices and funds taking a peek at that and thinking about their investments as to how do they maximize those investments? How do they leverage government to maximize those investments? And what we're going to do is we're going to develop a strategy around that for you. We're going to give you a custom strategy to help connect those dots and put you in touch with the right people. We cut the red tape, we put you in front of decision makers, and we build a network of individuals around you to make sure that your needs are being met and that your businesses are succeeding. Apologize, I went too fast there. What specifically can we do for you? business planning on a national and state level, understanding the impact of current legislation and future legislation, developing government policy for underregulated growth industries, advising and advancement of beneficial legislation, awareness and increased availability of government funds and resources, access and direct advocacy with policymakers. One of the things that we're seeing as a part of this growing trend are many businesses, family offices, and funds coming to us and saying, okay, Joe, we have Company A. Company A is a startup and it's moving quickly. We know that through our company that we're going to face different rules and regulations in different states that could be hindersome to our business or bothersome to our goals. Or we need certain things that are not codified into law to be codified into law so that we can do business in those states. What can you do to help us move in that direction? And that's where we step in and help them build the business plan around government. We're going to take a look at your company, your individual assets, your portfolio, your family office, and understand and help you connect the dots where within those we can be helpful to you and where you can gain the advantage. Everything that we do is custom made to the clients. Every strategy is custom made. We are in the process of making sure that you are connected with the right people to get the decisions you need to get. Also, many people are taking a harder look at the impact of current and future legislation. There are many things that are going on right now in government, again, whether at the state or the federal level, that are going to have a very large impact on business in general in the United States. Helping you understand that climate, helping you be able to make business decisions based off of that climate, help you understand what's going to work in the future and what's not going to work in the future. Developing government policy for underregulated and growing industries. Again, as I was saying, especially with tech, we're seeing this incredibly in tech across the country. There are so many good ideas out there, so many startups that are coming to the forefront and growing exponentially. But the problem that they're running into is they're going into certain places, certain states that aren't willing to do business with them, other companies in those states, again, because there's nothing codified into law around their type of technology that would protect an engagement of doing business together. So what we're doing is with a lot of startups in family office portfolios, going through and basically clearing the deck nationally for them so that their companies can grow at the level they would like to grow. As a part of that process too, again, this is about hedging and it's about winning. So through that, we're going to take every competitive means whatsoever at our disposal to also make sure that we're stacking the deck in favor of those that we're working with. Again, that comes in handy with competition. If you have 2 or 3 other entities out there that you're competing with, we're going to stack the deck any way, shape, form, or possible to make sure that you have the competitive advantage in competing with those entities. Advising and advancement of beneficial legislation. This comes in part to when we're doing our homework and working with you to look at your overall portfolio and set of businesses. This is something that really where we found a lot of these ideas come from are either from principals of family offices directly or CEOs of the companies that are part of their portfolios, as well as the funds. What we're able to do is take into consideration things that may be either helping or hindering their interests and being able to take that in such a position that they're going to then have a positive repercussion from those things that we're going to do with them. Awareness and availability of government funds and resources. That goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Government is spending at record levels right now. We do not see that stopping anytime soon. So if there is money that is out there that makes sense, why not go after it? And again, I would be creative with all of this. There is no set pattern. There is no box on this. We can be creative as you would like to be within the confines and ethics of the law. That being said, let me give you an example there. Non-for-profits. There are some great non-for-profits that are out there. And I think with technology and the way that our society is moving, they're becoming even more enhanced in terms of providing wraparound services, tying to jobs, things that are important to those in need. and those that we want to see helped. Government is providing a lot of those dollars right now, whether it be through federal grants, whether it be through money in state budgets. There is money out there, especially for the non-for-profit world, that is game changing. And that is something that we've been doing a lot of in helping those to get their footing, get in the door, get funded, and move in the right direction. Access and direct advocacy with policymakers. Everything we're going to do is about access and direct advocacy with those policymakers. When we drop a plan, we're going to have a team built around you that is going to open every door that needs to be opened to you. Anyone that you need to sit down with, we're going to open that door. That's what we do, is we provide access. We are going to make sure that you are meeting with those that are the decision makers and those that can move things. We don't believe in wasting people's time, and we don't believe in extra meetings. That said, we are going to be very clear and concise with whom we set you up with. And if it means tweaking the message a little bit to get it right, we're going to go down that road as well. That said, we're going to provide you with any level of access that you're looking to have, in any way, shape, or form to use that in terms of getting business done. Business planning on a national and state level. A couple things to think about here. There is an impact right now of high tax states versus low tax states. Any of your portfolio companies, I mean, we can look now at New York and California and the exodus of those two states, whether it be Arizona that's making out, Texas, or Florida. Elon Musk moving some of his operations from California to Texas. Through that, there are a lot of the states that are low tax states. There are numerous incentives that are out there as well, where they're trying to compete for your business. So I think anybody that has any companies that would have an interest in changing their tax climate, that's also something that we can be very helpful with to you as well. And it's going to make a big difference. If you're leaving a state like California or New York and you're moving to a state like Florida, or heck, even Ohio for that matter, excuse me, there are many different programs that are out there. There are many different monies that are out there, tax credits that are out there they're going to try and pay for your business to come to their state. So that's something to always keep into consideration. Maximizing your investments. Anything that you're invested in, odds are pretty good it's going to be impacted by government in some way, shape, or form. We're able to go in and get surgical and work around that so that things that you are invested in can have a much clearer path and do what they're intended to do, which is give you that ROI. Advocacy at the federal and state level for national business and investment policy. We look right now, and one of the big issues, especially with crypto, is the oncoming regulations as it relates to that industry. The process looks like it's going to be long and extensive, and as of yet, we're still seeing how the entities are going to align with this. Is it going to be a lot of the VCs and hedge funds looking to use some of the current associations that are out there? Is it going to be individual crypto companies that try and do this on their own? Is it going to be a team effort? That's still developing right now. And of course, through that's something that we're going to be very, very involved in that process as well. But with that, things are moving, and the rules and regulations that are coming down, especially from the federal level right now, are definitely going to have an impact on businesses. Understanding the impact of current and future legislation. We talked a little bit about this before. Having an overall idea as to what is going on legislatively, whether it be in your home state, whether it be in each state of which your portfolio companies are doing business in, or whether it be at the federal level, being able to give you an overview as to what is happening legislatively and how that's going to affect your business is incredibly important, because that's going to help you make the business decisions you need to make based off of what's going to happen and where it's going to affect your pocketbook. Developing policy for underregulated and growing industries. Again, we're seeing a lot of this, especially in tech right now. We enjoy being forefront of policy creation for industries without existing or state or federal regulation. And here's why. The general rule of thumb is you're better off regulating yourself than letting government regulate you. If you are active in the process from day one and you are having an open dialogue with government, you have a much better chance of getting what you want. Not saying that you're going to get all of it, But if you're getting 70 to 80% of what you want as they're writing the rules and regulations, you're typically in a good spot. If it's the opposite and government is regulating without your involvement, I can guarantee you as the day is long, odds are pretty good, government will find a way to mess it up. They always will, they always do. Not saying that they aren't going to get most of it right or that certain pieces of it aren't going to be where they need to be, but as a whole, there's definitely going to be issues. And that's why it is incredibly important from those in the business community, the family offices and the funds to be engaging with government. Government wants to hear from you. They want to hear how they can get it right, how they can move in the right direction. You have the institutional knowledge that they need to help them do their job. And believe me, they listen. Provide industry insights and education directly to policymakers at all levels of government. Just as I was saying, the majority of lobbying is educating. That, if you want to boil it down to its most simple form, the majority of lobbying is educating. And by educating the right individuals with the right message, anything is possible. You can very, very quickly change the deck and shape the deck. I mean, we can take a look at cannabis, for example, as shown here. Cannabis has moved incredibly quick in some states, not as quick in others, but overall nationally, probably quicker than many of us would have ever thought. First with medical use being allowed in many states, recreational, which is now being called adult, the potential of this administration to possibly change the scheduling of marijuana to a class 2 drug that would open up a whole different set of opportunities, bills that are out there right now addressing the banking issues around this. There are many things that are changing, and they're changing quickly. But even with cannabis, if you look back to its past and history, outside of a state like California and a couple other states, many of us 20 years ago would have never thought that we would have seen cannabis legalized in many states across the country. What they've done is they've been patient and they've been doing what we like to call incrementalism. And this is something to think. It's a long play. It's not a short play. But taking down a couple states at a time, a few more states at a time, and eventually that momentum builds. They're at a point right now with the cannabis industry where the majority of America has now gone to medical, and many of those have also moved into adults, which is setting up a situation that we believe sometime in the near future that the majority of the states in the US will at minimum allow medical, and many of the states will allow for recreational usage. Again, something 10, 15, 20 years ago, many of us would have never thought possible. So again, it's a long ball play and it's being patient, but taking time to do it right. And again, that's another way of looking at government, how to handle government too. Typically, the federal government will impose its will. So if you want to get something done at the federal level of government, but are hitting roadblocks, what we'll typically do is take a couple of states, low-hanging fruit, go build the case with those states, get it done in those states, and then that helps the federal government become a little bit more willing to be players in terms of the change that we're looking to move forward. Or the opposite can be true. If we're having a tough time with states and moving some things at the state level, we'll go to the federal government to push down on the states that they need to do something. And again, the cannabis industry has been phenomenal at this. They've done a great job of changing where perception was and where government was 15, 20 years ago, into where it is today. Advocacy and advancement of beneficial legislation and rules. So one of the very interesting things in politics is the rulemaking process and rules. Many people are focused on legislation, and legislation is important. Legislation is important because you do want to codify certain things in a law. There are certain things that you do want to get done. The issue with legislation is it can take a lot of time. It could be something short. It could be finessed where an amendment is dropped into a bill just before it hits the floor and voted out. And that's a very quick way of doing things. But more often than not, legislative process at anywhere from 6 months, 12, upwards of 18, 24 months. The rule process can be quite quicker. In the rule process, typically, you're not working with the legislature at that point. You're working with the different agencies, whether they be state or federal agency. And anybody on this webinar right now that owns a business or looking at their portfolio companies, can attest to different ways in which government has either been helpful or hurt via rules, whether it be an EPA issue, whether it be a tax issue. We like to go in and affect the rule process as well. Promote changes to existing legislation and or rules that ultimately ease overall investment expense and decrease limitations on growth. Work cooperatively with fellow industry leaders, updating outdated rules and legislation, and doing things that are going to, again, open it up for your ability to do business. Awareness and availability of government-funded resources. This touches a little bit about what we were saying before. There is a very, very large amount of money that is being spent at both the federal and the state level right now. That's coming in the form of grants, loans, and other ways with which they're moving money around, typically through the budget process. Early awareness and access to things that are not available. This is where you start looking at the competitive advantage. You will be in a position to know things before they are made public. And that is one of the most important things of what is provided through our company and through our network of lobbyists, is you are going to know about something before it happens. You are going to have the ability to affect something before that something happens. And this is where it gets important, because you're able to affect change before change is going to happen. Everything is about information, and we like to be on the forefront of that information. Access and direct advocacy with policymakers. We like to make sure that those that we are working with build very, very strong relationships with legislators, whether it be members of Congress or legislators from your own home state or states that you're doing business in. We like to make sure that those legislators have a very strong relationship with you and you have a very strong relationship with them. Access to policymakers, the ability to gain understanding of the legislative process and how it pertains to industries of interest. We're going to make sure that we're tying in whichever industries you're involved in, that each one of those are represented, and that we are doing our best to make sure that each of those industries is in a good spot for you and your portfolio moving forward. What are family offices doing right now? A couple examples. A family office has a large-scale investment in the gaming industry. They're looking to maximize revenue and ultimately expand the footprint of this type of gaming into different states. They're on the forefront of it. The issue they have are not all those states allow for gaming. So what we're doing is we're going into those states and opening it up to codify and legalize the type of gaming that they're looking for. That and then is going to take their fund, and anybody that's on the call, I'm sure, can do the math to know what's going to happen to their fund and those companies that they're invested in once those states allow for that type of gaming. Again, this is game changing for them. This is taking something that, instead of just investing in companies that have an interest in that type of gaming, to now being able to actually provide gaming in those states. Again, game changer. Example number 2, tech startup. And again, we're seeing this quite often with tech. Companies are coming to the forefront with solutions that are just so much further ahead and so much faster than where current rules and regulations are with government, where legislation is with government, where revised codes are in federal rules and laws. So with that, what we like to do is be able to codify what they're doing into law at the federal level, at the state level, and if need be, the rule process as well. We've seen in this example a tech startup that was growing by leaps and bounds, and they were growing by leaps and bounds in several states, but then in a few others, they started hitting roadblocks with people on the ground there saying, I'm sorry, we can't do business with you. This is not codified into law, and therefore we wouldn't feel comfortable setting up an agreement and a contract and doing business with you and retaining and using your services. So with that said, going into those specific states, and in this example, and this is how simple something can be, it was a 3-word change to be able to change the law in each of those states so that they were able to be in a position to make those in those states comfortable to do business with them, because what they were looking to do is now written into law. and through that, there was no exposure for those that was looking to do business with them. This is something that we enjoy doing, and definitely taking startups too in that direction. Startups a lot of times do not know the challenges that are in front of them until they meet those challenges. Our job is to help them see some of those challenges, what they're going to be on the front end, taking our institutional knowledge and being able to identify where they're going to have issues. What we then do is work with a startup to go ahead and make sure to mitigate that risk, take that risk out of the equation, do things to promote their cause and the direction they're heading in, do other things if need be to make it more difficult for their competition. We're all about opening doors and providing a long runway for businesses that are looking to get moving. How to make government work for you. We gain an understanding of your unique business, industry, and investment plan. We learn about your ideas for future growth and investment. We like to protect your investments, navigate upcoming policy changes, advocate with policymakers, help you expand new policy and legislation advocacy, understanding available funding. What we typically do as an initial process in working with new clients, we do a free and individualized portfolio review. So what we're going to do is, for a family office or a fund, we will look at your portfolio and through that see which one of your investments is going to need, or which one of your investments will need some help due to government rules or regulations, or using our institutional knowledge to be able to say, we may be able to affect some change here, and this could be beneficial to your business. You may have 10 different companies in your portfolio. 9 of those companies may make sense, 1 may not. We will tell you the one that may not make sense to engage with government on. It's where it needs to be. It's going to be fine. There's no need to change that. Typically, what we find is companies that are 50 million and north are companies that have some form of government connection that is impacting their business. It's once you get north of that it starts making more and more sense to engage in government to protect your business and to enhance your business. Understanding the potential impact, again, of what's coming next. Those are things that we're going to lay out for you. And again, we create a customized plan based on your needs specifically. Everything that we are going to do is going to be customized to meet your needs, and making sure with that we're doing what is going to put you and your entity in the best position possible for success moving forward. Everything is customized. Every relationship is planned. Everything we do revolves around strategy. This is decades in the making of curated relationships and strategy to be able to implement it to your plan in your business, in your interests, to be able to move you in the right direction. And with that, I will turn it back to Lindsay in case there are any questions.
Hi, Joe. Thanks so much. Great presentation. Yes, to all of our attendees, we do encourage those questions. So again, please, using your questions chat option over to the right side of your screen, submit all questions that way and we'll answer them accordingly. Joe, jumping right in here. First question, what do you forecast participation of family offices and funds to be in the future?
I see it continuing to grow, absolutely. As the family offices become even more integrated and even more professionalized in terms of what they are doing and looking at ways of making that extra dollar or squeezing the penny or doing things that are going to be beneficial to them, without a doubt, both of those entities are going to become more and more and more involved in government, which is why those that are out there should act now to try and impact things that are going to be helpful to them and their businesses.
Fantastic, thank you. Let's see here, moving on to the next question. How are you able to manage political and business interests on a national scale?
Absolutely, and this goes through our team of curated specialists across the country. what we have done is we built the network of the best in DC, the best of the best in each individual state. So through that, we are able to manage and build not just a policy strategy or a legislative strategy or a rule strategy, but also a political strategy on top of that. And as lobbyists, we don't wear a political hat. Our job is to make sure no matter who we're approaching, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, that we have great relationships with those people, and we are making sure that you're put in a position for success with each of those relationships. So absolutely, we're in a position to handle both of that. And also too, most of the people through our networks have extensive campaign experience, so they get the politics of it. And we apply politics to the business decisions that we make as lobbyists as well.
Great. And Joe, with regards to your contracts and clients, what would you say a typical size and scope is?
It really varies. It can be everything from blue chips that are out there to smaller family offices to startups that are just finished their Series B and have raised 75 million. It is a complete mixed bag that covers all industries. We touch everything, and through our experience and through our relationships, we're able to handle any industry that comes to us.
Great, thank you. Let's see here. Next question. What type of accesses do your service, or excuse me, what type of access do your services provide?
Absolutely, that's a very good question. Access is everything, and through our services, we are going to be able to put somebody in front of whomever they wish to be in front of. We are going to, whether again it be at the state level or the national level, whether it be on the legislative side, the executive side, or the various federal agencies and state agencies, we are one phone call away from getting in front of whomever we would like to get in front of.
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself there. I apologize. Next question. What can you bring to the table, Joe, that other lobbyists cannot? Can you tell us in detail what makes you different and unique?
Absolutely. I am the epitome of a hybrid. Many in our industry, and there are probably many on this call today that either use lobbyists directly or some of their portfolio companies use lobbyists directly. And what I would say is to anybody on the call can go to their lobbyists and ask them if their lobbyist is based in Texas and they ask to handle an issue in Utah, odds are pretty good their lobbyist is going to say, sorry, I only do Texas. Or if they have a federal issue, again, the same response. I'm completely different because I have spent time both at the state level and the federal level. As a lobbying practice, we have worked both at the state level and federal level. Through all of my years of travel, again, I've built that network of curated lobbyists across the country to provide the best of the best. So I can tell you that there are no other firms out there that are going to have the same type of reach, the same type of potential to access those that need to be accessed.
Great. Now, Joe, let's role play a little. Say I'm a family office or a fund. What does that process look like to engage with your services? Give us the big picture.
Absolutely. One of the most important things that we like to do is learn and understand everything about you. We want to be sure that we understand what makes that family office tick, how they operate, and most important, what is most important to them. And then through that, we then bring them through our process of our portfolio reviews, and then from there, start building out strategy. We like to involve the family offices and funds in that strategy, or we can build out the plan and let them sign off on the back end. Either way, they're going to be incredibly involved in the process in the direction in which we go.
Great. Now, do you foresee continued change and movement as it relates to government?
I do. I think for at least right now, there is a 2-year window where government is going to be moving incredibly fast. We're seeing it every day right now. At the federal level, the Biden administration, the House and the Senate, they are moving at lightning quick speed to enact the agenda in which they were elected to do. Now that said, we look at different states who are pushing back on that agenda, which is creating a huge fight and volatility in the market. So until there's a change in the balance of power of DC, and until there is again a roadblock or a logjam with a split balance of power, at minimum 2 more years, potentially upward of 4 more years. So there is a lot of time to get a lot done. And the beauty of government is when the water is muddy, it's very easy to dip something in that mud and never let it be seen. We like to take, and I will quote Rahm Emanuel by never let a crisis go to waste. We don't look at it quite like that, but from our perspective is when the water is muddy, it's a great time to get involved, because very often you can operate under the cloak of darkness to get your issue done without a spotlight ever being raised on it.
Great. Joe, that seems to be all the questions so far. So before we sign off and thank everyone for joining us today, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
That's it. Otherwise, I would love to and look forward to talking to everyone. Look forward to being in touch with you. Please feel free to reach out directly. Contact information is here below. And I would really like to thank all of you for your time today. It's greatly appreciated.
Yes, Joe, thank you to all of our attendees very much for joining us. Joe Jarabek, great job. I will be in contact with everyone directly, so if they have any questions for Joe, I would be more than happy to get you over to him. We thank you for joining us and have a great day. Bye-bye.